Friend, welcome back to the show. Today, I have a special guest. My friend Jones Loflin is joining me. So, Jones and I met over on LinkedIn. Surprise, surprise. But we've been sort of following each other for the last couple of weeks, and he reached out a few times. He's been following my newsletter, which is I'm super grateful for that. And he launched a new project soon, so I want to talk about that. So I invited him on the show. Jones is an international recognized speaker. He's a trainer and author of four transformative books, including Focused as a Bee, Juggling Elephants, and Always Growing. For over 29 years, he's helped individuals and organizations like FedEx, Walmart, Toyota, and the U.S. military make better choices with their time and energy. Huge topics. His latest book uses the unexpected wisdom of bees to explore focus in a distracted world. We're very much in a distracted world. So I'm excited for this conversation. I'm kind of selfish because I need to be even more focused with my time and energy. And today he's here to share not only those insights, of course, but just how we as authors can become better at leveraging our work, leveraging our book and expertise, and, learning how to monetize them. He's been doing this for many, many years. He's got a lot to teach me. I know that. So this episode is full of insightful things that I think will be very beneficial to all of you. Thank you for joining, Jones. Appreciate you, my friend.
Oh, what a pleasure. Hussein, I am thrilled that you and I found each other. I found you on LinkedIn. A friend had recommended, said, "Hey, Jones, you're an author. You need to read this guy's newsletter." And I read it and I said, "I feel like we're having coffee and you're just looking at me going, Jones, why aren't you doing this?" Or Jones, do this.
Yeah,
And so
that's
whenever
awesome.
you said, "Hey, how about coming on my podcast?" I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
thank you. I mean, I'm excited about our conversation today. Appreciate the work that you're doing, helping authors, whether they be starting out or, I mean, I may have a few books under my belt, but your stuff is great. It's so practical. So thank you.
Man, that means so much to me, brother. I really appreciate that. And shout out to your friend who recommended my work. That means a lot. So whoever you are out there, thank you.
His name's Todd Music. He was my co-author for one of my books. So there you go.
Todd, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate that. Shout out to you. So yeah, man, this is so great. I'm so glad that the work is practical. And that's really what I try to bring to the table is like, again, back to this idea of, okay, great. We have a book. We have our expertise all jam-packed in this folded notebook. What do we do with it next? And I love finding other authors who are, in that boat too, but have found ways to get their work out there, have found unique ways for those things to work for them. And, today, just looking at you, with the yellow and black shirt, got the bee in the background, you are embodying what your message is about, which I love so much. So what sparked the idea for Focused as a Bee, and how did you decide on using a fictional narrative to deliver your message?
Absolutely. My daughter, Sydney, and I have been beekeepers since 2019. And so we just always enjoyed working with bees. And we, because of my line of work as a speaker and a trainer, I'm always looking for opportunities for analogies or metaphors. My history is in learning about the power of metaphor, analogy in teaching and in training. And so we started talking about, what are we learning from the bees? What are they teaching us? And so then as we started talking about what they were teaching us, we started applying those concepts to our lives. So what would that look like if we did that kind of like a bee does, or kind of like the process that a bee colony uses? And so we started pulling that together, and then we looked at each other and said, "Hey, there's a book here, isn't there? There's more." And we're like, "Yeah, we think there is." And we talked to some people about what that might look like. And then for me, it was easy to use the narrative, the fictional narrative, because I've always seen the power of story, going back to my days of working with the author of Who Moved My Cheese, a book that some of your audience is way too young to even know about. But
one of my favorite books. Get
yes.
out of here
Oh, it
with
was
that. That's a
transformational.
classic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It changed my life and my perspective on work. And so I saw the power in that. I actually went to work for the company. We can talk about that at some
Wow.
point. But
Yeah.
anyway, long story is that it grew out of our own experience. And then we created the book that now is Focused as a Bee.
Wonderful. So you use this idea of analogy and storytelling and putting those two together. And, as a speaker, as a trainer, what makes those kind of analogies, those kinds of stories, those short parables, if you will, stick? Why does that resonate with us so much?
Yeah.
And what's your methodology of, I guess, getting that out of the things that you're currently doing and working on? Because clearly you're kind of good at seeing that in the world around you and the things that you do. But what is it about that makes it stick in our minds, so that we can refer back to it?
Yeah. I'm going to go back to, I mentioned Who Moved My Cheese. Let's start there. Give
Yeah.
credit where
Yeah.
credit is due. Year 2000, somebody handed me the book, said, "Hey, I picked this up at a conference. You're a speaker. Thought you might find value in it." I read the book in one sitting and was able to figure out where I was stuck. I was going through some pretty significant changes at the time. And I went, wow, I see where I'm at. And I see what, might need to change. And I actually eventually went to work for the company because I was so enamored and loved the message so much. And they made me a trainer to go in and do training in organizations, sharing the message. Now, here's where I see the power in that. One of my first presentations, Hussein, was to US Air in a merger that they were experiencing. I'm in a room with the top executives at US Air. I'm some high school teacher with about 8 years of speaking experience. What do I have to offer these people? What I found fascinating was presenting the story of Who Moved My Cheese and just helping them figure out where they were. They were like, wow, this is amazing. We need to do this, this, and this. And I'm standing there going, I don't have to have the answers. I just have to give them a framework for them to find the answers. And so to me, that's the power of using metaphor and analogy, is that people are able to figure out where they are, which is important. That's empowerment, right? They're able to figure out where they are. And if the story is built well, and if the principles are timeless, and if they're universal, they can go, okay, if I'm here, this is how I get here. And that excites me, because if somebody can do that on their own versus me having to stand there, go do this. Okay, there's your next step. Right. To me, that's a much more powerful way to help somebody grow.
Yeah. And also, really recognizing that everyone around you is as smart as you are in different ways. And I think we could deploy their own inspiration by planting a seed and saying, all right, here's what you could do with the seed. Here's how you could grow it. Here's how you can nourish it. I love that. So tell me a little bit.
I got to write down something. I love what you just said. You can deploy. What did you say? You can deploy their.
We're gonna have to rewind it.
Well, you can rewind.
You can deploy their inspiration, the motivation.
That's it. Yeah, you deploy. You enact. You activate their inspiration because they get to see where they are in the story. Excellent. Okay, continue with your next question.
Yeah, I know this idea of just a planting of the seeds, right? So you plant the seed, it grows into their imagination, and that alone, when people feel like they're a part of something, right? When we all feel like we're a part of the thing, I'm contributing. Now you're enticing me to contribute my philosophy, my idea, and add to the thing that we're building, whether you're a team, organization. Even with my little small team doing my thing, I'm always telling my guys, hey, just take this and run with it. This is kind of the vision, but just take it and run with it. Be wild. Show me something I haven't seen. Whatever it is, those ideas are so fun to spark in other people. Right. And doing it from stage or doing it even in coaching, it's so great because you can always lead people to the water, but maybe they don't want to be led to the water. Maybe they need to go through the scenic route first. You know what I'm saying? To be inspired. Maybe they got to get thirsty first, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got to create that felt need, that felt need to change. And that's what story does. It connects with them emotionally and helps them to then make decisions logically. I think is really important part.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut you off there. My apologies. No. I kind of want to go back to the bee analogy.
You go wherever you want.
You had the word busy and it's crossed out and it says focused, which I love. So tell me about that a little bit. Tell me, because there's some people that kind of thrive on this idea that, oh, I'm a busy bee. I got all these things going on and there's too much, there's all these things, but it's okay. I can juggle them. And it's really, they're not. They're struggling. They're under stress. They're overwhelmed. I've been there. Everyone's been there.
Oh, and I get there too. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
still struggling with all of that. That's why
So we
you
write
get
about
the
it. Yeah.
inspiration. Yeah, that's why we write about it, so we can hopefully get better ourselves.
100%. 100%. So what is it about a bee that can help us understand how we can focus more and
Sure.
clarify, and get there a little bit easier, I guess, maybe reduce the tension?
Yeah, yeah. The whole idea behind busy and why it's marked out, we often say busy as a bee. And most of the time when we say that, that just means when we're active. It doesn't necessarily mean we're aligned with our highest priorities. It doesn't mean that we're making the best use of our time and energy. It just means that we've got activity going on because we see a bee moving around and we go, oh yeah, look at that bee, it's busy. The reality is that bees aren't busy, they're focused. They align every bit of their time and energy, 100%, to a specific outcome, which is a thriving colony of bees or a thriving hive or, the future, if you will. And so every action a bee takes is aligned toward that outcome. Every bee in
Mm,
the hive. And so sometimes in my presentations, I will ask, if I'm working with a group of people or even in a coaching session, I will say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how aligned would you say that your activities over the past week are aligned with the outcomes you're looking to achieve? On a scale of
mm.
1 to 10, 1 being not at all, 10 being perfect. You know what, Hussein? I've not had anybody yet who's given me a 10. They're giving me numbers like 6 or 5 or sometimes 3. And I go, oh, okay. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so in answer to your question, what is it about bees? Number one is that they are so aligned. They align their time and energy with what matters most, which is our definition of focus. It's the intentional
Mm,
alignment of your time and energy towards what matters most. So that's one of the things. And then in the book, we talk about 6 permissions that you give yourself related to bees. But let me give you one more, and then I'll stop because I want you to be able to ask the question that's
no,
important
it's
for you.
fine.
Is
Yeah.
one of the fascinating things about honeybees is that they have one job based on their age. And so
Mhm.
until they get to a certain age or unless there's a crisis in the hive, those bees will do one job. Maybe it's to clean out the cells where
Mm,
the babies hatch. Maybe it's to
mhm.
go forage, but they do one job until it's complete. I wonder
Yeah.
how many of your listeners do one job until it's complete. If they're like me, they might, if they were a bee, they might say, you know what, today I think I'll go foraging. And they'd get almost out to the flowers and they'd go, you know what? I think I'm gonna go work in the hive today and make some honeycomb. And they'd start, oh, you know what? I think I'm gonna go, be a soldier bee and protect the front of the hive, because that's what we do. We jump from one thing to another, and then we wonder why at the end of the day we go, oh, I was so busy, but I didn't really accomplish anything of value. Yeah.
Well said. I I can't even begin to describe to you how important that is,
Hmm.
especially for authors,
Oh,
and
yes.
especially for, us sort of driven people, people who are, they got a lot of passion, they got a lot of ambition, all beautiful things, right?
Mhm.
But the number one thing I do when I work with authors, right, it's
Hmm.
clarity. We need to
Oh,
sit down and get extremely clear about, and I even go like, I need you to say what it is that you do and offer in one sentence. And we can work for the next 3 weeks to figure
yeah.
that one out. Because if we don't
Yes.
have that, there's no packaging, there's no systems, there is no marketing. Marketing is
Yeah.
just clear communication. Can you clearly articulate who you're for, what you're doing? And
Yeah.
so, and that's like Nike to you, right? It's everyone, right? Can you clearly just communicate it? And
Yeah.
once you do that, you learn that not only is it communicating it, then you can embody it. It
Hmm.
just gets a little bit easier. There's the tension sort of goes away. Now
Mm.
the things can align. Your online presence, your content, all the things which you're fantastic at, right? I've been watching your stuff too, and it perfectly aligns because you embody the work of the bee, right? You're saying, all right, I want to get this done. I'm going to work on it today. And even if I have to go do something else, it's fine. I'm going to push this through as far as I can take it, and then hand it
Yes.
over to my team, or
Right.
hand it over to my, author or other person, right? So I think that's fascinating. I love that. I found when I was kind of researching you and researching your new book, which I haven't read yet, but I
Okay.
was skimming through all the notes and everything that I've had, and I was like, man, bees are such a I mean, they're sacred. And in Islamic culture, they're literally sacred. They're in the Quran. They are sacred insects that, I mean, come on, look at them in our world. Like, what would we be without bees? Like, it's crazy.
Right.
So I love these analogies so much because they are simple yet profound when you see their actions, and they're so action oriented. And I don't know that if there are any lazy insects. If you ask me, they're always working. Where you go watch a thing of ants, go watch a thing, all like busy working, doing the thing, doing their job. And so I think Marcus Aurelius even alludes to that, right? Like, everything's doing its job. Get up in the morning, go do your job as a human. And that is such a profound way to bring it all back to what is our meaningful purpose, right? And I think that alignment with that meaningful purpose, comes through time. And but yeah, cutting the things that don't matter and focusing on the things that really align with us. That's so powerful.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about how you've written 4 books, and clearly you know what you're doing in that space. And then you're a speaker and a trainer, and there's a lot of authors out there, a lot of what I call authorpreneurs.
Yes,
right?
I love that phrase.
Yeah, so there's a lot of them out there, and I'm one of them. I consider myself one of them. How do you, if you were to give us a tip or two, if you will, from your world, how do you leverage those things to get more speaking opportunities, perhaps training opportunities, maybe sell a few more books? Like, what are some of the things that you've used in the past, or maybe even recently, that can help other people out there?
Sure. The biggest thing that I have found, and I've kind of stumbled on this by accident, Hussein, is packaging that book with something that will help them remember the stickiness. I'm not talking about honey here, but that being able to make it more than just, hey, I've written this book, would you like a copy or something? But coming up with creative ways to introduce that book to other people. For example, in my book, Juggling Elephants, it's about managing your work and life like it's a circus. And so when I would send that book out, well, still do, I don't do as much anymore, but when I would send that book out, I would include a pack of salted and shell peanuts. And I would put a note in there, a personal note that would say, here's some peanuts while you enjoy your trip to the circus. And I could call people who I'd sent that package to. And when I said, it's Jones Loflin, I'm the co-author of Juggling Elephants, they would start laughing. And they would say, oh, you're the one who sent me the peanuts. I never had anybody say they were allergic to them. We eventually stopped because of that, but it impacted them. Fast forward to Always Growing. When I would send that book out, or still do, of course, when I send that book out, there's a pack of seeds that have one of the quotes from the book that we put on top, and there's a personal note, and they go, see, growing leadership. Okay. Currently with Focused as a Bee, probably my favorite thing that we're doing these days is that we have the book. We sometimes will wrap it in some bee wrapping paper. And then we have these, I got one right here. We have these really small jars of honey from our hives that we have packaged. Amazing. And we put it in a box with the book. And so people get the book with the little jar of honey, and it all of a sudden it all connects. And so long answer to your question, I think one of the things to do is, how can you make it about more than the book? How can you reinforce the message of the book with something you physically offer them, or something you create that they can go watch or see, so that they can feel like they're a part of it, that are immersed in it? I think that's one of the big keys that I have found. It's not just, giving them your book. It's here's the problem it's going to solve. Here's a little something to help you remember it. I think that's key.
Well said, my friend. I love that. I mean, that's such look, I'm all about the memorable experience. How do you make your thing, whatever that thing is, right? Memorable. So later on, when I'm eating peanuts, I might remember your book, or I might remember a quote from your book, or if I'm having some honey with my whatever, peanut butter jelly or whatever it is, I have this glimpse. There's something unique about taste and smell, and the crinkle of the paper. There's something about those moments that activates our memory banks. And I love those moments, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously, packaging, our whole world is full of those things. But if we can become just a little bit more intentional, like you have been,
Exactly.
right? I knew you, I really wanted to go here because this is such an important thing to remember as an author, is that there are so many opportunities to be intentional,
Yes.
right? It's not
Yes.
just an email. It's not just social media. It's really like, how do people remember you? That's that thing right there. And memory is tied to our senses. And so what are you activating? And I love that you use and activate those senses in unique ways to help people remember your book, remember you, remember your work, so that there's an opportunity to get booked. There's an opportunity to laugh when you call somebody. You know, laughter. Oh man, if you can make that person laugh on the phone, you're probably going to make their audience laugh. You're probably going to make them feel good. If they're feeling good from that interaction, they want their people to feel good. So if they're having the next thing at the yacht or the cruise or whatever, you know, that laughter, that moment that I had with this person, I want to bring that experience over.
Yeah, that's a
fantastic.
great point. Well, and let me, I want to add right here. I mean, it's not a but it's something, an awareness is that it's a lot of work. I mean, you said it best a moment ago. We think doing an email blast of thousands of people or putting it out on social media is going to make the difference. I'm going to let your listeners into my world for a moment.
Please.
Hussein, when Juggling Elephants came out, we didn't start getting traction for about 6 months. I mean, we did a fairly big push when it first came out, but then, you know, everybody gets the book and they're just kind of, you know, they're reading it and those kind of things. But it was only after doing all of that work of getting this book to people, being very personal and intentional about that then we started to see some traction, because people started going, oh, wow. Yeah. They had 3 or 4 situations where they'd heard about the book or something from different people. Same thing happened with Always Growing, is that I pushed and lots of free books going out the door, which I know you're a big fan of, and that's important. But books with intention, you know, and connecting people. The same thing's happening with Focus as a Bee. The book came out in January. We saw some really good sales. Then they've dipped now, but now we're seeing them go back up, because now there's this community building of people who've got the book. They're talking about it. They're posting some things on LinkedIn. And so now we're seeing that trajectory go up, which I expected. I wish it would go quicker sometimes, Hussein, but it's all about building and growing for the future. And so, you know, I say to any authors out there, you know, be patient, but be consistent, which is one of the 6 permissions. But you got to be consistent with your approach. You can't just throw something out there and go, okay, we're ready. No, I mean, I'm still marketing Juggling Elephants, and it came out in 2005. You know, why not?
Yeah.
I mean, the message is still valid.
Yeah. So, I mean, the message in the Bible is still valid. Messages in the, you know, like they're still.
Exactly.
Right? Like,
Yes.
Like, I mean,
yes,
not to go, you know, super, whatever, but like,
no,
those are some of the best-selling books in the world, right? So it's like, I think it doesn't. I think what's amazing about that is that, yeah, like people think, especially like launch week is when authors are like most stressed and most freaking out. Like, is this going to do good? And you know, and it's like, you know, you can't measure how well a seed's going to do the day after planting it. Like, you just can't. Like, it's just silly to think that. And I think that's when the book is born, right? It's like it goes into, sometimes it goes into this dark phase of like, is anybody even hearing this or seeing? And that's the sad part. That's when people like really like, oh, it failed. Let me just write another one because it didn't capture enough, or it didn't do this, or it didn't do that. And it's like, well, you know, your kid might not grow up to be an engineer. Like, maybe the book just needs its time to do its thing. You know what I mean? And I only say that because I grew up and I went to architecture school like my dad wanted me to, which I loved. And then I didn't become an architect. Like, you know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like, I feel like a good book will find its home, and it will find the hands that it needs. It's an attractor, but it's okay to, I mean, I've shared this plenty of times. Like, Ryan Holiday says, you know, specifically, he's like, minimum, I send out 10,000 signed books to all kinds of, that's the first 10,000 for it to even start to get the book sales and start to get the traction. And these are big authors, right? People who have tons of funding, big publishers, all that good stuff. And so, you know, for us, it's like, I guess you could say indie authors and authors with smaller deals, whatever. Like, look, it's not just about the book sale. It's really about the experience of what happens when people come across my brand, my work, and that trust and that credibility. It just helps me close that gap just a little bit more. And you're doing a fantastic job of that. So thank you for sharing those insights.
You're welcome.
Can you share a moment when a book led to a surprising opportunity or connection?
Wow. That's a fantastic question. There's so many that come to mind. Okay, I'll give you one with juggling elephants, and then I'll give you one with always growing. With juggling elephants, my co-authors, and Todd will get me later because I can't remember all the specifics, but my co-author's mom had a copy of the book on her table or something at her home. Her friend saw it and wanted to borrow it. Her friend has it at her house, and someone who works for Wells Fargo saw the book, picked it up, and goes, "Huh, what's this?" "Well, it's a book, blah, blah, blah." This person reads the book, finds value in the message, and all of a sudden we started getting these orders for 25 and 50 books for different Wells Fargo locations across the country. And it's all because that word of mouth, the book just happened to be there. I mean, that's one of those moments that just blew me away. With always growing, I'll never forget. I do a lot of work for Clayton Homes for their leadership development, some of their leadership development programs. And I was at an event with Clayton Homes, and somebody in the room, because I'd forgotten how I even connected, but this person said, "Jones, I met you at a trade show, and you had run out of copies of your book, Always Growing, and you said that you would send me one when you returned." And so I didn't think a whole lot about it, but said, "Then you sent me one and had a personal note in it." Said, I love the book, and said, "I'd started talking about it to my team, and I'm going on with Clayton Homes. I started working with them probably 2019, and I'm still, got a great relationship with them, with partnership with them that's blossomed into other things." But those are some moments that surprised me. I'll give you one more. Is that I'll go back to juggling elephants because we've got so much history with it because the book's been out so long. I'll never forget a guy emailing us and saying, "I hate self-help books." I thought that's an interesting way to start an email. He said,
"Great way to start."
Said, "I'm a sales guy," and said, "My boss told me that I had to read a self-help book or some type of book to help me in sales." And says, "I went to the library, I went to a bookstore, and I found the smallest book I could find. And it was yours. It was Juggling Elephant." He said, "I started reading it, and I read it in one sitting." And he said, he said, and so that was surprising. Final one. I'm sorry. You open this can of worms, my friend.
No, man, this is great. These are the moments.
Here's the one that I will treasure if nothing else ever happens in my years as an author. I was at a conference in San Diego. I was working with a certain hotel chain. I won't mention the one because the person wouldn't. Anyway, but I walked into the room and I was there to speak on Juggling Elephants. A guy walked up to me. He didn't say a word. He just looked at me. He held up his book or his copy of Juggling Elephants. He says, "Your book saved my marriage." Wow. And I was just blown away. And I'm not saying that to draw attention to me, Hussein. I say that about the power of the message. I'm very blessed that Todd and I were given the opportunity to work through this and create this book. But that's something that surprised me, made me very happy, because you said earlier, what's our purpose in writing? I don't want to be a best-selling author. If it happens, great, but that's not the only thing that means to me. Is that more people are getting opportunity to either balance their lives more effectively, become more effective leaders, or focus on what's most important. And I'm excited about that. But what's the purpose in writing? And when you get clarity about that, it's to help other people make better choices with their time or whatever it is. That's the goal. And when you hear people say the things that align with what you're trying to do, it's just the greatest feeling in the world.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's so beautiful. And I think, all those examples are amazing. And I think that is the thing that I love to harp on, with a lot of my authors too, is that focus on the moments, focus on the things that actually will bring you such satisfaction that, like, when somebody walks up to you and goes, "Your book changed me, your book helped me, your book saved my marriage, my relationship, my daughter, whatever. Though, like that is immeasurable amount of love. Really,
Yeah.
that's to me. Like you put love and heart and soul into something, and you put it out into the world. That's its way of coming back to you. Is
Yeah.
that it's it's untangible. Like you literally can't
Yeah.
hold it, you can't see it. You can only talk about it and tell others how good it made you feel.
Mhm.
And if we're on, if we're bees, if we're whatever, like what are we trying to do ultimately? Like we're
Yeah.
trying to take care of our community, take care of ourselves,
Mhm.
take care of our families, and that in turn makes us feel good. So, I think a bee feels really good about its day's worth of work at the end of the day, right? Maybe we don't
Exactly.
know that right now, but I guarantee you it makes them feel good. And that's why they wake up and keep doing that job so
Sure.
well.
Have the
And I think
clarity.
that's why we wake up and, as authors, as people who lead from the stage or things like
Mhm.
that, we also want to capture, like in a way, archive those words, archive those lessons so that other
Mhm.
people who are not in that room can benefit from it. For five,
Absolutely.
$10, like it's the easiest access to people's experiences. And it's the
Mhm.
best way I've learned to go from non-speaking English kid growing up in the States to,
Wow.
I remember my first book that I got from one of my ESL teachers. She was so sweet and she knew what would resonate with me like so deeply. She brought me this book to take home, like to have.
Mhm.
She's like, "Hey, I was at the bookstore and I remember this. I barely spoke English." And she said, and it was Aladdin, but it was very cartoony. It was very
Yeah.
cute,
Yeah.
and I felt so special. I can't even
Mm.
express to you, right? Because this is like something from my world, from my culture. I get this, right? Aladdin, it was
Mm.
cute, and I'm reading this, or I'm learning to read, right? She's helping me learn to read, and I remember in fifth grade when I wrote my first book, and how much that impacted me as a young person and how to use my art and my skills and
Yeah.
storytelling. And, I always tell people like, man, write this book for those moments. I remember when my nephew
Mm.
first read my book, he's like, dude, I'm going to go to medical school. You help me decide. You help me understand my value and my worth, right? And I was like, that is crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
that was my
Yeah.
avatar. So
Yeah.
well put together, my friend. So you've been doing this for a long time, obviously,
Mhm.
personal development, your world training, all those good things. What's something that an author who's trying to get into the speaking world,
Hmm.
perhaps, just kind of navigating, maybe they've done one or two, they want to start charging, maybe they've done a
Mm.
handful, and they want to do more speaking engagements, they want to leverage their book for speaking engagement. I have a lot of
Mhm.
authors that want to do that kind of stuff.
Sure.
What's your best sort of insights on what are this, maybe a component or two they need to have together, to better amplify their work and getting those opportunities?
Sure. You said it earlier, Hussein. I think they have to get their messages aligned. Their social media presence needs to align with their website, and their website needs to align with their marketing materials. They I love what Donald Miller in StoryBrand talks about. He says,
Mhm.
your website should do the caveman test. Said in 10 seconds that people should be able to tell, what do you do, how will it make your life better, and how do I get it?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
and so many authors who want to speak, I will ask them when they call, because I have a lot of these conversations and I
Sure.
love them, as I'm sure you do. And I'll say, okay, tell me what your book is about, and they struggle a little bit. Or I'll say, okay, what are the three takeaways people are going to get from the keynote that you offer? And there's not clarity there. And I said, if you can't communicate it to me, how in the world do you expect to communicate it to your audience, to other people? And so I think that's where they have to start. It's where I had to start. I mean, I had a
Mhm.
real renaissance moment a few years ago when I realized I was
Mhm.
trying to spread myself too thin and had to figure out, okay, what is my message and how do I align everything I do with that message,
Mhm.
instead of trying to be a mile wide and an inch deep. Oh, you need on customer service? Yeah, my book covers customer service. Oh, you need on leadership? Yeah, I've got a chapter on leadership in my book. Or, oh, you've got no. Decide what problem it is you're solving or opportunity you're going to give people. What life-giving choices are people going to be able to make because of your work, and align everything to that outcome. I just think that's
Well said.
critical. That's number one. The
Yeah.
second thing I think is that, and I learned this when I was studying to be a professional coach, as far as leadership and time management, is that there's a great book called The Prosperous Coach. And in that book, he talks about have your radar up so that when you hear people talking about problems, say to them, I'd love to help with that. And they go, oh, how would you help with that? I've got this keynote, or I've got this presentation, if it aligns with what you do, but take those opportunities to connect with people and talk about the things that you do. And eventually if you're talking about it and your message aligns, and then you're willing to say, hey, I'd love to talk to you about the possibilities, then you're going to get those opportunities. But if you're just holding the book up, kind of like I tell my assistant sometimes, I say, I don't want to be that person who I feel like I'm holding a car wash sign up at the local bank on Saturday morning, like, hey, come get your car wash, come get your car. No, 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 no. I want to have people who have such clarity about who I am that when they encounter the problem that I solve, they go, I want Jones, and they come get me.
It's beautiful. So an inch wide and a mile deep.
Oh, a mile wide and an inch deep. That's the bad thing. Yes.
That's the
I'm
bad
sorry.
thing.
Yes. That's the bad thing. You're right. Correct.
Yeah, so what we want to do is we want to go an inch wide and a mile deep. And that means taking
Yes.
the things that you're great at, you're fantastic at, all these things, and start packaging them and go deeper into that world. Because that's the thing. If you are the go-to person, expert, guru, whatever you want to name yourself, right, coach, speaker, about that specific topic, there's a lot of people that will probably need to solve for that pain. Understand that pain very well and share your expertise around it and let people know about it. And I think, when you embody the message like yourself, right, things around you like send out those signals sort of automatically. They're a magnet, right?
Yeah.
And so you start to attract. Very well said, my friend. So tell me about the new book and tell me a little bit more about where you see it going in the near future. What kind of opportunities are you seeking, and how are you going to leverage this new book to get those opportunities?
Sure, absolutely. Well, one of the things, as you can imagine already, I reached out to all of my past clients and made them aware of the book. And then certain ones
Beautiful.
are actually getting, the book and, the honey and a personal note says, hey, here's my new book. Now, a lot of them I'm asking permission. I'm not just sending the box to them cold. I'm saying, hey, got a new book. If you'd like a copy, I'd love to send you one. So, we're leveraging the network that we already have. And that, number one, should provide me some opportunities for some keynotes, learning programs, coaching programs, those types of things, because they know who I am. I'm a trusted source for information. So that's one of the avenues we're looking at, is that, that area. A second one, of course, is to introduce people to me who may not have gotten to know me through my leadership book or through Juggling Elephants. Focused as a Bee has a lot of female characters or people in the story, and we did target it more toward women. Now, we're getting feedback, both women and men are finding value in the book, but we know that for women, sometimes success in the workplace is a little harder to achieve because you do have a lot more things pulling at you. And so that's why we wrote the book in the way we did. So one of the things that we're doing is making more connections with women in leadership roles, women in management roles, and say, hey, here's a book that's going to speak more specifically to your needs, rather than, let's face it, a lot of self-help, a lot of business books are written more with a male main character. And in this one, both the guide and the person struggling are women. And so, they can read that and see themselves. Because again, if I can see myself in the story, I'm more connected to it and more likely to keep reading and learn from the principles. Those are a couple. A third one that we're looking at is we're actually working on an online assessment for people who are just feel distracted. And so what they would do, and we've got a PDF version right now, but what they will do with that is they can go take this assessment to see what their challenges are related to focus. And then we've got the assessment aligned with the 6 permissions in the book. So from that point, we can help them, pinpoint their areas of frustration. And then we provide resources to them to help address those. Now, what does that look like? Well, it could be training, it could be coaching. Jury's still out on that. We have spent the first 3 months, or spending the first 3 months, really promoting the book itself and making sure that the message is getting out. Then we'll begin to build out these other tools that support the message. The tool will bring people to the book. The book will bring people to the tool. And ultimately, the book is a tool for somebody like me, and that will bring me speaking programs, coaching opportunities, and book sales.
Fantastic. What's one thing as an entrepreneur that if you could be reminded of on a weekly basis, what would that thing be for you?
Wow. If there's one thing as an entrepreneur that I could be reminded of on a weekly basis, what would it be? Just one thing I could be reminded of. I gotta go back to clarity of message. Making sure that what I am sharing, whether it be social media, whether it be to my newsletter subscribers, whoever, making sure that it's on point with the content in my books, making sure it's in alignment. Because, for example, I might choose to post something on LinkedIn that is, let's go back to customer service or strategic planning or something like that. I might post something about that. My audience is going to kind of wrinkle their forehead and go, okay, well, that's a good article, but I don't expect that from Jones. What I expect from Jones is work-life balance, time management, focus, leadership development, especially emerging leaders. And so just being mindful that everything I do needs to align with the message I want to send to others, because I don't always get it right. And so while I do remind myself of that often, I probably do need to remind myself of that more often, Hussein, just to make sure my message is in alignment. And that comes with planning your social media calendar. That's one of my goals in the next quarter to do a better job, is planning my social media posts so they will be richer, more effective, and better in alignment, rather than saying, oh gosh, that's right, I got a LinkedIn post coming up on Friday. What am I going to do? Well, that's not an effective way to plan your social media in that way.
Yeah. Beautiful. All right, my man, give me one last little tidbit about how you can see up and coming authors using your insights, maybe one or two insights that you can leave them with as we wrap up this episode.
Okay. I'm going to defer to the author of Who Moved My Cheese, who I had dinner with one night. It was just to sit as an aspiring author, to sit with somebody who's been one of the best-selling business book people of all time was just, it was unreal. You're saying, I'm sure you had moments like that with some other authors, but Dr. Johnson said something that evening. He said, don't write a book you haven't lived. And I went, wow. And Hussein, I'm sure in your journey, you've interviewed, hopefully you haven't, but I bet you've had some guests who'd written a book, but you could just kind of sense the DNA's not there. They kind of, they might have been engaged with it, but it didn't have that warm emotional connection, because you kind of tell they hadn't lived it. That's a huge piece of advice that I've tried to live by, is that anything I do with a book, I must have lived it in some way, because if not, I can't communicate it clearly to the reader. And so that would be the first thing that I would say, is to make sure you're doing that. The second one is to just be willing to make imperfect progress. You know, when you're writing and it feels bad or what, keep doing it. Be willing to say, I'm going to keep sitting here. I'm going to keep working on it. I'm going to keep writing. Focus is to Be took me longer to write. My daughter and I wrote it. I took the lead, but it is leading that process. It took longer than any book I have written, simply because I wanted to get the messaging right. We wanted to make sure that it had the right impact. But there were so many times I just felt like this is not working, but I forced myself to keep writing, be consistent. And eventually, the pieces come together with a book coach and other people helping me as well. But just stay with it, be consistent, and you'll get there. It's a long process, and the payoff's going to come. But as you've heard me talk about today, it's not going to come tomorrow. It's going to come 3 months from now, 6 months from now. 10 years from now. As I said, Joe and the Elephants came out in 2005, and I still get speaking engagements. We still have significant book sales on that book from
Beautiful.
20 years ago.
Wonderful. Jones Loflin, thank you, my friend, for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure just getting to know you more, getting to know more about your work. Your insights are huge and impactful on me, and they give me a lot of ideas on what to write and next on my newsletter. And this gave me a really good episode, man. So thank you. And I think the audience out there, I think there was so much insights here. And if you could take one thing from this, just show up. Show up for yourself, show up for the people that you're supporting. I think that's very important. And on that note, thank you for watching the Rising Authors Experience. Y'all take care. Peace.
Thank you.